to Big Board Sports on a Tuesday morning. Zach By and Chris Honorado hanging out with you, holding down the fort until the big man in the big chair gets back tomorrow. Roger, who was out at the Rose Bowl last night watching Penn State suffer a agonizing defeat at the hands of USC.
See those highlights, Coach?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, I think while I was in the press conference, a couple of people in the media weren't paying attention to the press conference. They were watching the last couple of minutes of the football game.
Of course, that is the voice of Will Brown, head men's basketball coach at the University at Albany. Picked up a double-digit win last night against an Ivy League opponent in Cornell, second consecutive Ivy League opponent after that game at Columbia this past weekend. Coach, non-conference is in the book. You're 9-6. I mean, give us the overall temperature of your team right now.
Yeah, the non-conference served its purpose. I think we had our ups, we had our downs, dealt with some adversity, not having a lot of bodies at times. But 9-6 is a whole lot better than 6-9 or 5-10. So, I thought we showed flashes. I don't think we were as consistent as I would have liked. Especially on the defensive end. I thought we were up and down. And a lot of that could be playing some guys, maybe too many minutes. I played the game. We all played. And sometimes when you get tired, you try to hide and you try to rest instead of, how many kids nowadays want to put their hand up and say, hey, coach, take me out? When you get taken out, you never know when or if you're going to go back in. So, and I also think, especially our front court guys, maybe playing outside of Steyer, of course, playing a little cautious not to foul because we didn't have a lot of depth up front because Travis was out for a few games and we haven't had Jerron for a while. But, overall, it's solid, I guess. I think every team, in the country probably thinks they can get better, moving forward. But I do think there are a lot of teams, after the new year now that have hit the wall or reached their ceiling. I think we're one of those teams that can continue to get better in a variety of areas, not just one.
You before the season, one thing that you kept on sort of cautioning, I'll say, you said, hey, we have an experienced group that's going to have the basketball in their hands a lot. David Nichols only played in 15 games for you, played like maybe 3 minutes a night. Joe Cremo, while he was Sixth Man of the Year and Rookie of the Year, played 20 minutes a night. Was never asked to be, the alpha at all times. And then you got a guy like Marquise Grayson who never played a Division I basketball game. After 15 games, how do you evaluate those questions that you had in the preseason?
I think I still have the same questions. I think you hit on it, Zach. At this level, it's hard. When you're at Duke and you're at Carolina, you lose 3 starters. No big deal. I got 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in, 2 Burger King All-Americans and a White Castle All-American. Here, for us, now we're starting David Nichols, who hardly played a year ago, who was very talented. Mm-hmm. It's just he was playing behind the best point guard in our league, Evan Singletary. And when we took Evan out, as you know, I'd either move Peter Hooley to the point, and we played Joe Cremo at some point as well. Marquise Grayson, first time at the Division I level. So really 15 games under his belt. And Joe had all the success in the world, great high school program, won state championships, came in last year and was able to sneak up on teams because they were so worried about Sanders, Singletary, and Hooley. There was no pressure on Joe because we had all those other guys. Now he's the guy. And so not only is he trying to learn, hey, I'm playing 35 minutes a night, and instead of coach screaming at me for 18 minutes, he's screaming at me for 35 minutes. And, he's learning. It's a process. And my thing with him and David in particular is always next play. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. You can't let bad calls, missed shots, coach yelling at you affect you for multiple possessions, because those are possessions we end up wasting and we help our opponent. So, again, I keep saying work in progress, it's coach talk and all that, but, it's true. We've got to continue to not let some of these things affect us. At our level, it's all about guard play, unless you get a once-in-a-lifetime guy like a Jameel Warney up front. You know, guards are going to win the majority of the time, you know, in our conference. And we have three guards that two of them, this is really their first year at this level, and a third one with a completely different role. And our bigs, our starting bigs, are more defensive guys, rebounding guys, physical guys, screeners. They're capable of scoring a little bit, but it's our perimeter guys, especially Joe and David, that really score the ball for us. You know, so solid overall, anxious for conference play. We open up with 2 games on the road to start conference play, so we'll learn a lot about ourselves, I think, in this next week.
Zach, it's funny, and I've said this to you a number of times, that, you know, even at the small New Jersey high school level, I loved when the coach would yell at me, because it's like, I've heard other people make the analogy with women. It's like, it's when they stop caring, you're in trouble. If the coach is yelling at you, they expect more from you. So it's easy for me to say. It's not done at a college level where you don't want to get chewed out. But, Will, you said in the postgame presser last night, regards to Joe Cremo, that sometimes when you're yelling at him, it's not because he's doing something poorly, it's because he's not shooting enough. He made a big 3 for you guys last night. And is he grasping kind of the urgency now that he needs to be a scorer on this team?
Well, as good as Joe is, to his credit, he's also very unselfish. He's a team guy. You know, he wants to win. So you have to give him credit for that, and you have to respect him for that. You know, with that being said, there's very few kids at any level, in my opinion, that put in the time that Joe does in the gym. So if you're going to go in the gym every morning before lift at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to set up the gun, our shooting machine, and you're going to take 500 to 1,000 threes every day, when you get in the game, you got to let it fly.
Right.
Especially when you're making a high percentage of them in practice and on the gun. When you miss 1 or 2, you can't get gun shy, because everybody knows Joe's going to get to the basket and score. He's going to post up and score. He needs to keep the defense honest. Yep. It's not always about making it. That's nice if he makes them, but you've got to take them so that defense knows that, you know, hey, we can't leave Cremo. So him and David both, you know, Joe will shot fake and pass it, whereas David will try to pass up an open 3 and ends up taking a contested pull-up from 18 feet, which is probably the worst shot in basketball. You know, you want to get in 15 feet or less or shoot the 3. You know, we always tell our guys, let's force our opponents to take contested jump shots, preferably contested 2s. So those 2 guys just got to, as long as it's in rhythm and they're open, they got to let it go.
We're joined by Will Brown, head men's basketball coach at the University at Albany. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, Albany's getting a major piece back from injury, and he's ready to play.
I'm going to eat a donut.
Thursday night, Chris is going to eat a donut. Yeah. Will has brought us in breakfast here. And
Zach's already had one.
I already have. We got 1 down, 1 to go here. America East play starts this Thursday. We'll gauge Coach on where he stands within the conference next on Big Board Sports. Welcome back, Big Board Sports, on a Tuesday morning. The first edition of Big Board Sports in 2017. Zach By and Chris Honorado hanging out with you right up until noon when we bring in Han and Humpty. And, of course, being joined here for another segment by the head men's basketball coach at Albany, Will Brown, 5-time champ, hanging out with us in our 104.5 The Team studios. Coach, conference season starts this Thursday. You're at UMass Lowell. Where you've seen, I know you've seen a handful of the teams in your league right now. In your estimation, where do you stack up right now?
You know, that's a good question. I've seen some of the teams in our league on film because we've played similar non-conference opponents, but I've really focused on the non-conference opponent. I do think Vermont is the clear favorite. They do return basically everybody from a year ago, and their best player is new, a transfer from Tulane, a 6'8" kid who's really good. So I think they're the best team. UNH has a lot back from a year ago. They're always good. They're well coached. They're coming off a really tough loss to Dartmouth, which surprised me. I think Dartmouth was 2-11 at the time. They lost to Dartmouth the other day. You know, we're in the mix. You know, I just don't know how good we are, you know, right now. I think we're good enough to be a player in a conference tournament type scenario right now. I do believe that. What we're going to do day in, day out in a 16-game conference, schedule, I don't know. But what I will say is we've really only had the perceived 8-man rotation in place for 3 games. And, we beat Penn State. We lost to a very good Cincinnati team. And then the non-D1 game we won. But that's the small sample size I have with that group. I'm not going to judge us on at Lowell, at Stony Brook with that rotation because I think it's going to take Jerron, a good 2 weeks to really be where he needs to be conditioning-wise, cardio-wise. But, I think we'll be top half of the league. I'd be very disappointed if we weren't, but I'm not one of those coaches that are going to sit here and tell you, we're the best team in the league, we're the worst team in the league, we're middle of the pack. I do think if we play up to our capabilities, we'll be in the mix, for sure. But I do think our league as a whole is definitely better than it was a year ago, for sure.
And you're referring to Jerron Lands, who is a junior college transfer, only played the first, was it 3? Is that?
He played our first 3, yes.
First 3 games of the season. He's got good size, scores around the basket, rebounds it really well. He's got a wide frame. Yeah. He's got those wide hips. Great rebounder. I mean, where does he stack up? Like Chris and I were saying before, from what we saw in the first 3 games of the year, you could almost argue someone from the outside that doesn't see every rep in practice. You have your own rhyme and reason for starting Rowley and Steyer. But, I mean, you could prospectively say, hey, Travis Charles and Jerron Lance could be starting.
Are you telling me I should change my starting lineup?
No, I'm saying you got a deep front court, but I mean, those guys offensively, I think, at least in my own estimation, I'll only speak for myself, are head and shoulders above Steyer and Rowley offensively.
Yeah, they are better offensively, but I think, Greg and Mike understand our opponent. They understand game planning. They understand execution a little bit better. They're more consistent defensively. And the thing is, they're all a little bit different from each other as well, which I think is good. When Travis comes in the game, it's like bringing in instant offense. Jerron comes in the game for a kid that's 260 pounds and 6'7". He really moves. He's physical. He can go get the ball. He can put it on the floor for a guy that's that big. So, yeah, I think offensively those 2 guys bring another dimension. What I'm going to look to do probably is, maybe partner, Steyer and Travis, Mike, Jerron. So now maybe we've got an offensive guy, a defensive guy. The good thing is you have the flexibility to play around with it a little bit depending on what we might need. Last night we needed Travis's offense against Lowell zone. The big thing now for us, if that front court is intact, excuse me, and Jerron's good to go, we need one guy on the perimeter to help Joe and David on a consistent basis. It doesn't have to be, it can be Dallas one night, Marquise the next night. If it's Marquise making threes or Dallas making threes, just to take some pressure off of Joe and David.
How much does it concern you, almost halfway through the season here, that you're not totally sure of what the rotation is going to be or what your combinations of 5 guys out there will be? Do you feel like, without the injuries, obviously, but in seasons past, hey, headed into conference play, I know these are my 7-8 guys. These are the guys I know I'm pairing up together.
Well, I know the 7.
Yeah.
We started the year with knowing the 8. The problem is there was a stretch there where we didn't have Travis and Jerron.
Right.
And then the perimeter, the issue is last year Dallas didn't play at all at the small forward spot out on the wing. He had to play up front because big Richard Peters, there was nobody for him to guard half the time, and we lost Travis for the year. So, now the intent going into this year was Dallas was going to play all at the small forward spot. Then Travis gets hurt. Right. Jerron gets hurt. Dallas is playing up front again. So, assuming Jerron's going to be good, we know we're going with the 4 perimeter players, with Dallas being the first perimeter guy off the bench. And if we have those 4 guys up front, That's what we're going to go with. That's what we're going to roll with. Nobody's walking through that door that's gonna change that. So, and we're good with that. Sometimes when there's less guys to play, it makes your job easier as a coach, even though we all complain we wish we had more. And it's always harder if you have a deep front court because there's only 2 spots there. And none of those 4 guys can play the small forward spot. So you got 4 guys to play, 80 minutes. So I think those 4 guys can hold down those 80 minutes, very well. We've got 4 guys on the perimeter, in my opinion, to play 120 minutes. I'd like to have one more, but I'm one of those guys that, you've got to be productive. You've got to do it in practice consistently. I'm just not going to throw a 5th perimeter guy out there just to play him.
Right. Do you have fun coaching this team?
I have fun coaching every team, but I do feel like I've aged a couple of years already. The spot on the top of my head's getting bigger, and I don't like what the scale's telling me every morning. But all kidding aside, the reason why, yes, to answer your question, I have fun coaching this team. This team sometimes, is very frustrating to coach, but also I forget that it's a young group, especially on the perimeter. I'm sitting here and telling you guys that the perimeter wins in our league, and that's our most inexperienced guys right now. And so I need to take a deep breath and realize that. I don't talk like this, Zach, and I won't say this in front of my team, and I know, no disrespect to you guys, but I don't think our guys listen to the radio, and if it's on Twitter, maybe they'll take a look at it. We might be a year away. We might be. I hope not, because for David and Marquise, this experience, and Joe, it's invaluable. Now it's like, whoa, Joe, you're the focal point of every scout. Last year, everybody was worried about those other 3 guys, so, they didn't talk about Cremo much, and he'd come in and he'd get his 10 points a game, and, the other coach would get upset, but yet, he was so worried about the other 3 guys. So, and then trying to get, especially David as our point guard, trying to get him to learn to change gears, when to attack, when not to attack, a good shot, a bad shot. So I think this group is really learning. They love being in the gym, and what we're trying to do is really get them to understand, if you have a bad practice, you get another opportunity to practice. You don't lose. You might lose that day, but you're not losing a game on your record. When you lose a game, you don't get those games back. You don't get those opportunities back. If we have a bad practice, guys can look at each other and be like, you know what? We didn't bring it today. We have to bring it tomorrow. When that happens in a game, you hang your head and it's a wasted opportunity. I mean, we're practicing 4 days a week. We're only playing 2 games a week. And I just want these guys to really understand how quickly it goes by. Season, I mean, we're done with non-conference. It seems like it's flying by.
Right.
This season is going to be over before you know it. And, guys like Joe and David, they've got more years to play. This is it for a guy like Mike Rowley, a Dallas Enema. So you really want to embrace it. You want to run with it, and you don't want to waste any opportunities. So the tough part for me is I'm a competitor to a fault, and I want to see these guys have success, enjoy success. I want to see them win. And sometimes as a coach, you're handcuffed on the sidelines. And you get frustrated. I mean, I can't go out there and score or rebound. I'm sure these guys wouldn't want me in uniform anyway. But I just really want them to be successful because I know how much they enjoy the game. They like the game, and that's why I try my best to help them learn the game.
His name's Will Brown. He's the head men's basketball coach at the University at Albany. They're 9-6, done with the non-conference, heading into America East play this Thursday when they travel to UMass Lowell. That game will be right here on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio, pregame at 6:30. Will, good job here, and best of luck here in the next couple weeks.
Well, I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Will.
Now that I have a day off, are there any bowl games
By the
tonight?
way, the mark of being in the depths of a college basketball season, the aroma of cough drops.
Yes.
by a coach.
Always. You always have a cough drop in your mouth.
Absolutely. But are there any bowl games tonight? Is like the across the street pub bowl? I mean, there's no 4 and 8 playing 5 and 7.
No, everyone's done, and so are we with this hour.
Thanks, guys.
Will,
Thanks, Will.
best of luck here